Hey folks, Michael Mann from Michael Mann Security Services. Welcome back. We took a week off last week. Scott, I guess he needed to go on vacation because he's mentally and physically weak. So I took off. I was on vacation with him. I never take off. I love to work. So welcome back. We missed you. Welcome to Insurance and Prepaid Legal Plans Protecting Security Ministries. You know how to get a hold of us, but if you don't, just in case your first time, michaelmannsecurityservices.com. Send us a message. That's our website. You can get Scott at 615-606-1006. You can also get Scott at scottm at michaelmannsecurityservices.com, or you can get me, Michael, at contact at michaelmannsecurityservices.com. Of course, you can always go to Facebook and Instagram and get us at Safe with Man. Normally, we'll answer that within about 15 minutes. If not, it means someone's on vacation, more than likely. But if I see it, I will answer it. All right? Okay, stuff coming up before we get into the content. Certified Protection Specialist. So every Monday for the next 8-9 weeks, I am teaching a CPP certification prep course. So the CPP, or Certified Protection Professional through ASI, so the Industrial Society for Industrial Security, is the gold standard in security management. I've been a member of ASIS for almost 20 years. I'm a CPP and a PSP. It is the CPP, again, is the most sought after standard in corporate security or security in general worldwide. So if you want to know, or you need to know what to study or how to study for that exam, send us a message. I've already started, but our first week last week or this week was an admin week to set expectations. So go to ASIS website under certification, see if you qualify. If you do and you're interested, send me an email at contact@michaelmannsecurityservices.com, and you can join in on that on Zoom every Monday night from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. It is free. Because I love security, I love you guys. We won't charge you for that. You will need some material for it, so if you've got questions, send me an email and you can jump on board. And if you're dedicated to go through those 2 months with us, then I'll help get you through the exam. Okay? We don't have the answers, obviously, but I can show you what to study. All right, Serving the Church, a primer for security ministries, paid content. That's next Tuesday, October the 6th, 6 to 8 p.m. Basically, that's the scope and developing everything you do for your security ministry, your church security ministry. Church security is it's kind of a strange monster. There's not any standards, and so that's what we're all about. The last almost 30 weeks, we've been providing those standards for you, but this really breaks it down, talks about security plans, what that means, training, all that kind of stuff. So we've got folks already signed up for it, something you probably don't want to miss. You're going to get something out of this, so we hope to see you next Tuesday at 6 p.m. If you're in Middle Tennessee, Urban Rifle, Introduction to Personal Defense, that's going to be next Friday, October 9th, 5 to 9 p.m. That's the manipulation and actually handling the weapon inside your home for personal defense. That's going to be right here in Brentwood, Tennessee. Again, if you're close, if you're on our Facebook stuff, you've seen the videos that Warren did for us. So jump in there. I think we've got 3 slots left for the class. If you're in Middle Tennessee, hope to see you October 9th. And if you really like us, I guess you'd come from out of state for the class. All right, October 11th, Behavioral-Based Threat Detection Module 1. So this is the Israeli security concept. We've just added content to it and just changed the name. It just makes more sense for most people calling it this. A lot of people don't understand that the Israelis have a really comprehensive behavioral threat detection program, so we're calling it what it is. That's Sunday the 11th. 1 to 4:30 p.m. And then we have Module 2, which is the final module in this. Sometime set in November. It's on our website. I can't remember the date. Virtually instructor-led training event, so it's online, and that is $60. If you are serving in church security, executive protection, anything in the industry, this is the most important class you're going to take. It's very, very important to understand behavior and see those attackers 2 weeks before they actually commit the act. That's what this teaches you to do. Okay. And then CPS Module 1, or I guess our flagship course, the Church Protection Specialist Module 1. If you don't know anything about that, that's 3 separate modules. This is your standard for your church security team. Behavioral-based threat detection is one of the most important classes you can take. This is, if you're on a church security team, you need to take these 3 modules. Very inexpensive. You get a bunch of certifications out of it, and I don't have to come to your church to do this. All three of these modules are online. We schedule them throughout the months, and so we're starting all over again with our fourth or fifth group. I can't remember which one it is now. Had a number of churches go through it, churches all over the country. We've got somebody that just finished, a group just finished Module 2. They'll be finishing up and starting Module 3 here this month, and so we're starting over again at the 25th, the end of this month, for 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Management of aggressive behavior certification. You get the basics of behavioral threat detection, and then we continue to move through the modules: CPR, bleeding control, handgun techniques, so on and so forth. You can go to our website, and we'll give you, or you can get a detailed breakdown of what this looks like and what it is. This is your standard. This is important because we're going to talk about this here shortly. All right, expectations. So a little bit longer. I usually talk for run my mouth for about 45, 50 minutes. We're going to go probably an hour today. Maybe not, but I think we will because it's an important topic and we've got somebody else here to speak to you about a couple things. So probably an hour. So here's the curriculum real quick, or kind of what's going to happen. I'm going to give you a general overview of our insurance. Very important. And this now, if you're not in a church or a faith-based organization, if you're in a business, this applies to you also. Very specifically, you got people that are going to be working and doing something, even if they're volunteering in a security capacity where they're armed or even unarmed. This does apply for you if you're a business. Obviously, we focused on faith-based organizations for this. So I'll give you a general overview of insurance. Then I'm going to give you, like I do, break it down for considerations to make you understand or help you understand it. Then we're going to talk about self-defense plans. I'm going to bring somebody up, let them talk about that, and then we're going to have a Q&A. So if you have any questions about security operations liability insurance, or about a self-defense plan, or the difference, if I'm not clear enough about it, okay? All right, so let's get started because I think we've got a lot to pack in here today. So let's just talk about insurance general overview, okay? So understand, let me kind of set you up for this. So about weekly, we'll get an email from a church, and what has happened, because they've listened to one of our webinars, when I talk about, look, if you're deploying a volunteer security team, and you haven't told your insurance company, the church needs to call the insurance company and tell them. I don't care if it's armed or unarmed. Because there's a good possibility that the liability insurance your church has had for years does not cover security operations liability insurance, so you don't have it. So the functions of a security team are much different, and they are probably not going to be covered if there's some sort of an issue with the insurance that your church has had. Now, maybe it is. Maybe they did something. Maybe something was grandfathered in. But in our experience, that doesn't happen. And so it's a surprise when they pick up the phone, call the insurance company, and the insurance company sends them a survey. And they go through this long survey and they don't know what to do, or they don't know what to say. And a lot of times churches get so shy or worried about it, they don't do anything. So I'm going to walk you through that process. So we get a question a week about this, some kind of an email asking questions about what kind of liability insurance you need, or what's the difference, or why do we need to notify our insurance company. So here's why. So we're going to talk about two today. We're going to talk about security operations liability insurance, and then we're going to talk about a self-defense plan. So the security operations insurance that goes through your insurance company, that's from your insurance provider that your church has, provides very specific coverage for your church security ministry, okay? So because the issues or the things that could happen with your security ministry, even if they're unarmed, are very different than what would happen with another volunteer group, and more than likely, again, your basic liability insurance is not going to be covered, like things on use of force incidents. God forbid a shooting would ever happen. Negligent discharges, and those happen, we're going to talk about them. Hopefully they won't happen at your church. A self-defense plan, which it's kind of, I don't know if there's such thing anymore, but it's really like prepaid legal. And so a self-defense plan is an individual civil and criminal defense litigation coverage. And that is for an individual, where the church security operations liability insurance covers the church and it covers the security ministry. So there's two parts. You need to have both. Let me say that again. It should be a requirement if you've got a security ministry. Number one, your church's insurance company should know that you have a security ministry, whether it's armed or unarmed, and the scope and what that means, and I'll get into that in considerations. And number two, I don't care if they're armed or unarmed, they should have, each individual church security or ministry or team member needs to have a self-defense plan, or this individual civil and criminal defense litigation coverage to help cover them, even though the insurance is covering the scope of it, they need that individual policy or plan, and we'll have somebody come up and talk about that, an expert in that. So again, if you've never been involved in a use of force incident, I mean, I was involved in several as a police officer a long time ago. I'm old. That was when I was very, very young, before I went back into physical protection for the government. And I will tell you, for use of force incidents, very specifically, whether it's use of force or use of deadly force, for both type of incidents, I was investigating everything at the local level to the DA, and a couple of them went to the Department of Justice. Even though I did nothing wrong, I followed the department's use of force policy, and I had the privileges and immunities as a police officer. You still have to sit around and wait and worry about what's going to happen. You do not want to be caught as a civilian or citizen, as a volunteer, get into a use of force incident with someone, even if you're protecting the church, and not have this coverage. You do not want to have it. Trust me. Okay? It is very, very important to have both of them. All right. So let's just talk about very quickly the purpose of insurance. Really, the purpose of insurance is really just risk mitigation. And so when we talk about the ways that we address or how we address risk, remember, risk is your church's exposure to some sort of hazard. So that could be everything from bad weather, slip, trip, and fall, or even the active shooter, which hardly ever happens. But again, that's probably in your risk matrix, or it should be in your threat spectrum, or both. Okay? So there are some avenues to address risk when we start talking about insurance. So if this is the first time you're hearing about this or talking about it, let me kind of walk you through it and why all this is important. So number one, you can avoid risk. And I will tell you, even the largest organizations with all the money in the world can't avoid it. Avoidance means we just take it completely away, and that's almost impossible. The companies with all the money in the world cannot completely avoid risk. I was in global security for Facebook for a couple of years. With all the money that those folks have, they cannot avoid risk. There's still risk for them. Okay, so that's when we take it completely away, and you really can't do that. Risk spreading really means geographically what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate assets. Okay, that doesn't work very well with churches either. So really, if I got special nuclear material I'm trying to protect, or really bad chemicals, instead of keeping them in one location, I'll spread them throughout the plants and put different little protected areas around them. So that way, if the adversary came in to attack, they'd have to go to multiple locations that are protected. Again, for a church, that doesn't work very well. Risk reduction. This is important. It's why on the screen you'll see that it's in bold lettering. Risk reduction is when we do things like put security measures in place. It's when we have, again, this is important, a standard. It's a standard for our security ministry. Here is the problem, though, when we talk about risk reduction in church security ministries. Just the act of putting in a security program, very specifically for us in a ministry, creates additional risk. Let me say that again. Implementing a security ministry, whether they're armed or unarmed, does create risk for the church, even though we're reducing risk on another side or on the backside of it. And it's because you may be involved in things that the church was not involved with before, having to respond to an incident, carrying firearms in the church. There is an inherent amount of risk just having guns in the church. And again, you guys know, man, I'm a gun guy. I'm a 33-year student of Colonel Jeff Cooper's Modern Technique of the Pistol. I teach self-defense. I teach rifle. I teach pistol stuff. You see that. I am a proponent of people being armed. But listen, it still creates this inherent amount of risk when you're doing it. So understand, as we put our security measures in, even though that reduces some risk, there is this inherent risk that happens when you put that kind of plan or that kind of program into your ministry. Then there is risk transfer, which is what we're talking about. Risk transfer is when I give that, or actually, as a gift, we transfer that to somebody else, and that is the purpose of insurance. Okay, risk transfer is why we have insurance, why the church has it. Then there is risk acceptance, and what that means is, at the end of all this, there's still going to be some risk left, and that's some things that you're just going to have to accept. And a lot of that's got to do with the church security teams or ministries. Even though you've got insurance, maybe every security team member has a self-defense plan, there's still some inherent risk left over, and the church has to accept it. Okay, or not. They can just decide not to have the ministry. Okay. Basic areas of insurance protection you've heard this before. This is stuff that your church probably already has. So there's liability insurance, there's property insurance, workman's comp, there's vehicle insurance. If you've got vehicles, your church has got a policy that probably covers all of this. The problem with these general plans is that it does not cover, most of the time, this does not cover security operations in your ministry. Okay? So we talk about the basic liability. What we're talking about are general liability. There's different terms for it. That can do for anything for like protections from claims for injury. So it's the 8 o'clock service. People are coming in. As folks are coming inside the front door, there's a rug there because it's raining. As people walked in, the rug got pushed up off the floor. It's sticking up like this. And 83-year-old granny trips over the rug and she hurts herself. That is what basic liability insurance, that's one of the things that it covers. Because in the United States of America, the third leading cause of death in the U.S. are accidents. And so this is very, very likely. I've been running church security ministries for 5 years, a big one, a very large one. The majority of stuff that we see, slips, trips, and falls, responding to medical incidents, everything from people to passing out to people falling, and then every now and then just suspicious activity. But most of the time, it's slips, trips, and falls in basic medical emergencies. So that's something that your liability insurance for your church is going to cover, the general or basic liability. It can protect church leaders, volunteers, for things like claims of property damage, personal injuries, and damage caused by like negligent acts, omissions, etc. So that is something else that your general or basic liability church policy is going to cover. But again, the majority of the time, that does not cover security operations. Okay? So now let's get into security operations liability. Security operations liability is designed to cover incidents involving a higher level of risk. Somebody purposely put at a front door to look for an adversary. Somebody that's armed to walk inside the church or outside in the parking lot. Okay? Someone very specifically to respond to some other type of emergency, some sort of a function you did not have before. And so there is a higher level of risk, and that is what your church security operations or liability insurance will cover. So we're talking about things like use of force. The security team has to use force. We're talking about injuries. So when we talk about, most of the time we think about use of force, we think about an active shooter and use of deadly force. Well, we think about injuries. There could be an accident based on something the security team has done. And then we talk about things like negligent acts. So when they do something stupid. And we're going to see that in just a minute. It could also do things, when we talk about negligent acts, think about this as not only as a volunteer, but as a private citizen. It could be the security team starts talking to somebody they believe to be suspicious and they don't let them leave on in their own free will. As a private citizen, as a church security volunteer, I'm not a police officer. I can't hold somebody at a location unless I know a crime's been committed. So if it's a misdemeanor, that has to happen in my presence, and in most states for a felony, it means I have to have at least reasonable cause to believe the felony's been committed. So that could be a negligent act. So things that your church security ministry could be involved in just by the basic nature. Show you a couple quick videos real quick. You have seen this video before, okay? This is the shooting that happened in Texas. When you say, well, of course that's covered, understand you guys probably saw this. You probably saw this past week. Jack Wilson, that shooting, the guy that stopped the shooter, that actually went to a grand jury. This is why church security operations liability insurance and self-defense plans are very, very important for the church security ministry and each individual member. This was a justified shooting. You can see it. You can see exactly. He took out a shooter that killed 2 people, and then I think there was another fatality caused after this because of the shooting itself or because of the incident. It went to a grand jury. That just finished. So this happened last December. This was a year before he got the word that he wasn't going to be charged with anything, even though it was a justifiable shooting. This is why insurance and self-defense plans is so important. You've got to have them. You need to have both. Okay? When we talk about negligent acts, you guys have seen this video before. I think this happened in Pennsylvania. Church security team is in their little space. For whatever reason, a gun comes out of the holster. There's a negligent discharge. A projectile hits another security team member in the head. That is a negligent act. Okay? So because of this, again, church security liability insurance, and I would, even though I don't think a self-defense plan will cover this, but you still want to have it. This individual that had the negligent discharge was charged with a crime. He was charged with a crime after the investigation was completed. Okay? You guys have seen that video before. We'll move to the next one. Another negligent act. I think this was just outside Philadelphia, maybe a church. It was not a security team member, but it was someone with a concealed carry permit in the congregation who decided to step in between this guy that was causing this issue. And you'll see the story here in just a second. You saw the video before. And he ends up using deadly force against this guy in an incident where, I don't know, probably at the most soft empty hand control would have worked. And so this guy with a concealed carry permit, even though he wasn't part of the church security team, this could happen if church security team members carrying a pistol. He's got a carry permit. He knows, or he's supposed to know the rules for deadly force. The majority of church security teams in the country, their only standard for carrying a gun is under a carry permit, the majority of them. So this could happen. These are things that that could happen that are reasons for having church security liability insurance. Okay? So considerations very quickly, things to think about with insurance. All right, number one, if you're just now going through this process, or if you've been talking about it, I hope there's some pastors or leaders on here that listen to this. Hopefully you'll watch this video later if you're not here live. Number one, if you've got questions and you're starting this process for ministries and insurance, meet with a church security expert or SME in church security, not with a police officer. Let me say that again. Do not meet with a police officer. Law enforcement officers do not know anything about physical protection. Okay, that is not in their skill set. They conduct law enforcement operations. Law enforcement operations and physical protection are two separate career paths, number one, and number two, they're two separate disciplines. All right? So what does that mean? Go find someone that knows about church security, figure out education, so they have an education in physical security, or it's security itself or risk. Look at their experience. So get a resume from them. Have they dealt with church security teams before? Have they worked for a church before? Have they worked with church security ministries? It's great if they're a general security practitioner or consultant, but have they dealt with faith-based organizations? Ask those questions, look on the resume. Certifications. You've heard me talk about this before. The CPP and PSP, so CPP again, Certified Protection Professional, PSP is the Physical Security Professional. It's not like the panacea for like security. It's not everything, but it does show competency, and it is internationally recognized as a legitimate certification and proof that you're a subject matter expert in security management and or physical security. So I would look for one or both of those. That shows that someone has taken the time, taken their education and experience and applied to get this certification. And I've taken both exams. They're not easy. I've been in this industry for a long time. Both tests, PSP was much harder, but the CPP wasn't easy either. They're not easy certifications to get, and you have to have a certain level of experience for both. And then references. Get references, especially if they work for churches or faith-based organizations. Pick up the phone or email them, whatever. See what kind of service that consultant provided, but you're going to need this to start with if you're just now going through the insurance process. And the reason why is at some point you're going to probably get a survey from your insurance provider if you're just now notifying them, and they're going to ask about this specifically. A lot of them say something about, talk about meeting with the police or some law enforcement official, but from experience and from doing this for other churches, if you get somebody like this, I've done it, you give them the resume and tell them who you got dealing with you, helping you, it's going to make this much easier, trust me. Determine the scope of your security ministry. So if you're getting into this again, very specifically, you've got armed folks, they're going to send you a survey. It's going to ask things like, we want a copy, or they want copies of your security plan. The security plan is a big document that says everything that you're doing to protect your church. Yes, and law enforcement officers don't write security plans. Security personnel or security SMEs do that for you. So they're going to ask about your security plan. They're going to ask about your procedures and protocols, and they're going to want copies of them. They're going to want to know if the team members or the ministry, if they're paid or if they're volunteers. They're going to want to know the number of hours weekly, because the more the hours a week that the security ministry is on site, the more risk there is for the church. And so, of course, because we're transferring that risk to the insurance company, they want to know the number of hours. Training and certification. They're going to want to know what training, certification, and recertification is required for the security team. And they're going to want to know, are there state requirements and licensing, and do they have those? So they're going to want to know all of these, the answers to these questions. So you want to determine all this and get this into place before you pick up the phone and start asking for coverage. Because if you don't have it, they're going to come back and tell you got to have it, or they're going to want very specific elements of this. Okay? Implement an internal standard. That standard is a level of quality or something that's accepted as the norm. Mann put something into place, determine, hey, this is exactly what every security team member is going to do. If they're going to carry a weapon, this is what they're going to have to do, and this is what certification and training is going to look like. Very specifically, that's why we designed CPS. CPS has 3 modules. It does everything that you want it to do, provides every certification that you're ever going to need for protection and church security. Here's the video. Our friend Warren set this up for us. It's the excellent video services from Warren. We thank you for this. This goes over. You can go to our website. This is the standard for church security. It covers everything. I would tell you, develop some sort of a standard, stick it into place before you call the insurance company. Have everything ready and decide what that looks like. Decide what it is. Meet with that security professional. Get a volunteer to step in that's going to lead this and get this put into place before. Okay? Got this going on October the 25th, Module 1. Okay? Then contact your security provider, your security insurance provider. So from there, once you notify them of what the scope of the ministry is, then they can walk you through the gaps in coverage and tell you exactly what it is or they'll tell you what you need based on what it is you're doing, based on the coverage that you currently have, and then, of course, they'll tell you what you're going to need and how much more that's going to cost. Okay? So, again, very quick, just a quick overview of some things that you need to do in considerations. We're going to get into self-defense plans. Again, before I have somebody, sorry, this fell off my ear. My ears are big, and it usually holds them up. So, self-defense plans. Again, these are individual plans that provide that litigation or that coverage for litigation for both civil and criminal acts. When we talk about, again, the use of force, Jack Wilson, that was a clean shooting. It's probably as clean as it gets. This guy killed 2 people in the sanctuary. He responded very quickly. But again, that went to a grand jury to determine a couple things, and you guys have heard me say this. Was it murder, right? Was it manslaughter, or was it self-defense? And it took these folks an extended amount of time to make that decision and tell him, okay, it was self-defense. This is why you need self-defense plans. Got somebody from U.S. Law Show going to come up, a regional guy here that's in Middle Tennessee. He's an expert in this. He's going to kind of just explain the process, talk about it for a few minutes. Then I'll come back up and we're going to have a Q&A for anybody that's got questions. You can ask about self-defense plans to this nice young fella, or you can ask me about church security insurance if you've got them. Okay? We'll let him come up and talk about self-defense plans.
Hey guys, it's a pleasure to be here. So the first thing I want to say is kind of like Jack Wilson. We look at him and we see that there is a lot of variables that can happen in these incidents. We want it to be as clean cut as that, obviously. His was 1 in a million, in my opinion. When you look at that, not only the shot he took, but the little amount of life that was taken. Obviously, there were still 2 innocent lives that were taken that day, unfortunately. But we have to understand that just because we do the right thing does not guarantee us the right outcome. Even if you know your sheriff, even if you know your DA, there's still a hefty legal process that can go through that, and sometimes the retainer alone for attorneys can bankrupt families. So what we do at U.S. Law Shield is we want to take that load off your back. In the event that you get involved in a situation where you have to defend yourself or someone else, we step in and we pay 100% of your criminal and your civil defense cost. We do that up front with no deductibles, no hidden fees, and we pay it whether you win or lose with absolutely no caps. And guys, that is the most important part of our program. We have to understand when you walk into that courtroom, whatever may happen to you, whether you're in there for, whether it's three weeks or 3 years or whatever the amount of time may be, and I'm being facetious with those numbers, but my point is you want to ensure that you're never going to walk in and not have the attorney paid for. And not only are we going to cover you criminally, like I said, we are going to cover you civilly. And that's a big deal, guys, because I don't know what it's like in your state or what part of the country you're in, but in Tennessee, for instance, you can be sued civilly at the same time that you're being tried criminally. Even if you get tried criminally and are not found guilty, if you're found innocent, they can still sue you civilly, and it's fairly easy to do. So we have to understand who's going to protect us in this, who's going to be our protection, because for most of us, it turns out being our 401ks, our Roth IRAs, whatever we've been investing in, whatever we have equity in, we normally have to cash that out to fund these processes. And I don't want that to be you. So what we look for is we want to be able to provide that coverage for you at an affordable rate of $10.95 a month. We are cheaper than what you're paying for Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, 2 cups of coffee at your local coffee shop, or a meal at a fast food restaurant. We do want to make it affordable for our members, so we do that in a way that anybody, whether they're making minimum wage or whether they're making a really high income, is able to afford competent legal protection. We also offer a 24/7 attorney answered hotline. So in the event that you get involved in a situation, whether it be 3 o'clock in the morning on Christmas morning or 7 p.m. Thanksgiving night, anytime, day or night, any day of the year, you give us a call. Our attorneys are going to answer the phone. It's not going to be a paralegal. It's not going to be a critical hotline. It will actually be a licensed attorney who will answer immediately. The reason that's important is, number one, you have an immediate protected conversation going on with you and your attorney. Number two, not only are they going to answer, but they're going to tell you exactly what you need to do in that moment. And they're going to show up on the scene as quickly as they can get there to represent you to the police that are at the wherever the incident may have taken place and whatever goes on. And guys, I want to reiterate, we do cover any legal weapon, a weapon of opportunity. So in the event that you're using a knife, taser, pepper spray, your hands, your feet, whether it be your pistol at home, your shotgun, whatever, if you're defending yourself any place, anywhere, we will take care of you. And we do not have an exclusion as far as the weapon, as long as it is a legal weapon, a weapon of opportunity. I do want to go over some quick add-ons that we offer, and you'll see these on our website when you go to apply, and that'll be at uslawshield.com. A few of the add-ons and these are some special things we do that other people do not do, that I think we bring a lot of good things to the table with these. The first one is the gun owner identity theft. Depending on what state you're in, we have to understand there are a lot of times whenever a gun is stolen, we may have had no fault in it. We may have locked it in our vehicle. It may have been in the home, what have you, and then it's found or used in a crime scene, and they tie that back to you somehow. Well, one thing we got to understand with that is, just because we didn't give that gun to the criminal, because it was our gun initially, there can be a criminal and a civil battle that can follow it pertaining to us. There is a litigation, and there's definitely a liability. So because of that, we do offer a thing called the gun owner identity theft. What it does, it is an add-on, so if you don't want it, you don't have to. It's addition to our core membership, but that gun owner identity theft protects you in the event of a lost or stolen firearm. What we do is we assign an attorney to your case. What they do is they help you file a lost or stolen firearm with the police, and then if that gun is found or used in a crime scene, they give you all the coverage you need to protect you criminally and civilly, again, with no caps, no deductibles, no hidden fees, even covering retrials and appeals. The next one I want to discuss is our 50-state protection. This is an additional coverage as well. The reason we make it additional is to save you money. If you travel a lot, it's definitely something you want to have on. If you don't travel that often, it's definitely something you just leave off and turn it on when you need it. It's very inexpensive. It's less than $3 a month on top of our core plan. Uh, but if you need it, turn it on. If you don't, keep it off and turn it on when you do need it. It's definitely one of those coverages that I recommend. If you travel pretty frequently, go ahead and just leave it on. If you don't, save your money. Like I said, we do want to make this plan affordable for everybody. Not to mention, next I want to discuss our minor child protection. This is significant to our company as well. If you've got kids and you want them to be able to defend themselves, they can be protected as well. In the event that they had to defend themselves at home, whether they had to, push a bully off of them at school, or whether they have an after-school job and on their way to their vehicle they had to pepper spray somebody. If your son or daughter gets involved in one of those situations, we will represent them as well with our minor child protection add-on. It's only $2 a month per household, not per child. So if you got 27 kids, we're definitely praying for you, but we will cover all of them for just $2 a month. And again, that does protect them even if they're not biologically yours. So if you've adopted kids, step-kids, whatever the situation may be, they are taken care of. The next one I do want to talk about is going to be our hunting and fishing. This is something significant to our company as well. A lot of you may be sportsmen and hunt and fish pretty frequently. If you do hunt and fish, you understand that there are some laws out there that are kind of crazy that you may not be aware of, and people make mistakes in the woods every day. This protection helps you in the event that you make a faux pas in the woods. A very common one that we run into in Tennessee is people will kill a rattlesnake or a copperhead and post a picture of it on Facebook, and then they'll get a game warden knocking on their door a few days later because it's actually illegal to do so unless that was threatening you, and then proving that's a whole other process. We don't expect you to know 100% of the laws when you walk in the woods. We don't expect really anyone to, which is where when you have that coverage, it will protect you as well. Again, that is an add-on if you want it. If you don't hunt, you don't need that. And our last but not least is our bail and expert witness. This one is the most important in my opinion. The bail bails you out of jail up to $50,000, so that's a very significant amount. Not to mention, we will cover 100% of your expert witness fees. We all understand that expert witnesses can be the cherry on top of a trial. They make a huge difference as to whether you will be successful, sometimes and sometimes unsuccessful, because it actually brings someone who's an expert in that field and is able to explain why you may have done what you've done, why you took the actions you took. Because a lot of times our juries are a little biased, or they may have some type of a misunderstanding of how these self-defense situations take place because of what they saw from a movie. And so these people can come in and say, hey, I've been in these situations. I've had to do this. This is why it makes sense. This is why my client did what he did. And sometimes they can even be more effective than the attorney themselves. And again, that coverage is combined with our bail bond and expert witness, and that all is covered under one. You'll see those add-ons there. But guys, I do want to tell you, when you sign up through Michael Mann Security, there is a special benefit you get. The first one is when you sign up at all, we're going to lock in your rate for life, and I'm going to tell you how to get that. Locking in your rate for life means in 40 years when the price of milk is $97 a gallon, your rate is still $10.95 a month. It will never go up as long as you live. You will never have to worry about if you've had to use our services or whether you haven't, if the rates are going up, and you can look back and say, man, I'm glad I locked that in because it's next to nothing based on inflation in the future. It's very inexpensive today. When you sign up on an annual basis tonight, and that's going to be online, guys, when you sign up annually, not only do we lock in your rate, but we give you 2 months free. So you pay for 12 months, we give you 14 months of coverage. That's a huge benefit, guys. That is only something you can get through using the promo code MMSS. That's the abbreviation or the acronym for Michael Mann Security Services. And like I said, that is MMSS. You'll follow us at uslawshield.com. If you'll go there and then put that code in when it prompts you to, it should say promo code. That is the only way to get that benefit, though, which is the locked-in rate and the 2 months free. Annually, like I said, you do get that 2 months free, and it's just $10.95 a month times 12, which comes out to $131.40. I guess what I'll close on, you guys, is we have to understand that how much is it worth to us to have that protection in our back pocket? Because I'm more than willing to give up one fast food meal a month. Let's say my money is that tight. I'm more than willing to give that up to know that I'm protected. One of the significant benefits is that we are going to cover you on duty. So if you're serving as a church security team member, whether you work in armed security or unarmed security as a career, or whether you're a police officer, whatever it may be, we will cover you on and off duty. There is no exclusion to that, and there's absolutely no additional cost for that as well. So you know that whatever you're doing, wherever life takes you, whether you do end up doing that type of work or whether you're just serving as a volunteer on your church security team, you're not going to have to wonder, hey, am I taken care of? And you're not going to have to bankrupt yourself or your family covering these hefty costs and what they can be. Other than that, I do want to mention as well, you can cancel at any time. So if this is not something you like in the future, something you want to be a part of in the future, which most people stay with us, they really enjoy our coverage, but if it's something you don't like, you can always call and cancel, get a complete refund of what's prorated to you with absolutely no cancellation fees. And one more thing, on your membership card, on the very back of it, and you will get that in the mail, it's a hard plastic card, we do have a non-emergency line. Lots of you have probably had questions for attorneys and you didn't want to pay that consultation fee. You can call that number within our business hours and speak to a program attorney in any state that you ask for and ask them all the legal questions you want. That's a huge benefit, guys. Other than that, that is the gist of our company. That is who we are and what we do. I really appreciate you guys hearing me out. I'm going to pass it off back to Michael, but thank you. And again, that promo code is MMSS, and go to uslawshield.com to sign up, select your state, put in the promo code, and we're happy to have you as a member.
Okay. All right, folks. Thanks, pal. Scott has put the link so you can see it. So it's there. So if you want to if you decide you want U.S. Law Shield, sign up. Put MMSS in that, and then you'll get that discount that was mentioned by our friend at U.S. Law Shield. Okay, again, a lot of information, 2 parts. We had the church security church security operations liability. That insurance and what that covers. So remember, that covers the church and that covers the security ministry as a whole. And then you've got the self-defense plan, which covers you individually as a church security team member. Look what happened to Jack Wilson. He had to wait to hear what the grand jury had to say. So it is imperative that you have both. And remember what U.S. Law Shield said, even if you don't have an arm team, but if you got pepper spray, use your hands, you got to pick up your glass case and hit somebody, that is covered. Okay. All right. So we had, again, we talked about insurance. We talked about self-defense plans. I hope the information was valuable to you guys. We try to throw a lot of information to you guys, in a small amount of time. So we hope you got something out of this. I'm going to ask if we've got any questions. Do we have some? All right. Yep. Jim. Yep. So just basic liability insurance on private investigators. Jim, in the state of Tennessee, that falls under private protective services here. Whether you're an armed guard, you're doing private investigative services, or anything security related, alarms or whatever, you do have to have liability insurance to do that work, even a consultant like myself. So you'll have to have liability insurance that covers you doing that work. And then I'll let our friend here talk about self defense plans for that private investigator.
So as far as private investigators go, when it comes to coverage, uh, if it is something your attorney needs in the sense of I'm sorry, am I not in camera shot? If it's something your attorney needs in the sense of making sure that your trial is handled correctly, it's absolutely something we're going to cover. We don't have an exclusion for that, so that is one thing to keep in mind. I can absolutely see situations where that would be called for. I've heard a lot of stories where they've actually brought in some private investigators to take a look at some issues and make sure that they were handled a little more correctly. Not saying that law enforcement isn't capable of doing that, but sometimes you run into those situations. But that is a covered incident for our attorneys. Absolutely.
Anything else? Nope. Okay. All right, folks. We appreciate it. We thank U.S. Law Shield for being here. If you have questions, shoot them to us. We are glad to be back. We missed you last week. Next week, if you're still listening, so we have Tuesday. We have the preferred content, and that's going to be on setting up your security plans, all the things you need to do to get this thing rolling. That's preferred content, $20. It's on our Facebook page. You can pay for that. You're going to get a lot of cool stuff. That's 2 hours. Wednesday, we'll have another webinar. Next week, we're going to talk about preparing for civil unrest. So if you're a faith-based organization, you're worried about what's coming up, we've got this awesome, it looks like so far, pick for the Supreme Court. Looks like it's probably going to happen. Looks like professionally they can't attack her. They're already attacking her kids, and they're already doing it. They're going to attack her faith. They're attacking it right now, and we're all going to come under attack for that. Maybe not physical attack, but some bad, surprising things are about to start happening, okay? Things that have been hidden, evil that's been hidden in the darkness for a long time, it's starting to come out, and it's only going to get worse. So to cover that, to help you with you guys with that, I'm going to talk about plans and how as a church, your security ministry and the leadership can plan for civil unrest. That's next week. We hope to see a bunch of you here. Scott, any other questions, anything? All right, guys, we appreciate it. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, come on. We got U.S. Law Show going to add one thing. Go ahead.
Hey guys, he actually brought up with what's going on in our country something I want to add. Many states have been dealing with red flag laws or what some will call ERPOs. And if you're not familiar with those, I encourage you to look them up. I don't know what state you're in or where you're viewing from. In Tennessee, we don't necessarily have them yet, but I have a lot of friends across the country who are dealing with those, and that is absolutely something that Law Shield does cover. So if you became a victim of an ERPO or a red flag law, which would be enacted by your government, we would absolutely represent you through that. If you are a member of ours, that is no additional cost. That's not an add-on. That's worked into our normal coverage. And, him talking about that got me thinking we are kind of facing and we're diving into a new time in this country where we're seeing a lot of gun owners get victimized, and we're seeing a lot of things happen where the good guy really turns out, in the eyes of the public court, to be the bad guy. And ERPOs, in my opinion, is a version of that. We will protect you through those and make sure that you have the absolute legal defense that you need, as well as everything else we do. That's all I wanted to add. I apologize for interrupting.
No. All right. Questions? All right, folks. Again, join us next week if preferred content Tuesday from 6 to 8. And that's, what are we even calling that? Setting up security ministry, something like that? Yep. Well, join us 6 to 8. You see it's on the Facebook page. Sorry, we have a lot of content. We got a lot going on. Next Wednesday, planning for civil unrest. Your faith-based organization applies to businesses too. So we hope to see a bunch of you on that. There's some interesting things coming. I can feel it. We can already see it. So join us next week. We hope to see you Tuesday. Very specifically, if you can't pay that $20, then see us Wednesday back here next week. Next week's going to be a big one. Okay. All right, folks. That's all we've got this week. Again, we missed you. Glad to be back in front of the camera. Glad to be back to talking to you folks. And remember, of course, and that's what this is about. It is about prevention, not response.